Okay, so this video is probably going to be a bit long and roundy, but I'm going to go over all of the gear builds and the save files, what's special about them, how they work, all that good stuff. Very first thing, we will be using the complex route with splash radius buffs, which causes tons of bright flashing lights all throughout the run. There's no way around this. So if you're epileptic or photosensitive or whatever, sorry, there isn't really a way around this, you just need to make your own build, which will probably be worse. It's a little unfortunate, but I'll give a quick demonstration. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1... Yeah, you can probably see why that might cause some issues. I don't know, before we start, these saves... Actually, I don't think you need all DLC, but you do need DLC for them. Probably should look this up first. I think you just need Bounty of Blood, Developer's Cut, and Director's Cut. So that's DLCs 3, 5, and 6. If you don't have one of the DLCs, you can probably work around some stuff, but like DLC 3 is pretty important for the route, and you'd have to work it out yourself, really. The builds all kind of just expect for you to have all DLC, because we use stuff from wherever, as long as it's useful. But with that all out of the way, let's actually get into the save files, first of all. So these save files, firstly, they have normal mode done, TVHM done. In TVHM we have all main quests done, but no side quests. In normal mode we have just all quests, all side quests, all DLCs, everything's complete there. So if you want to do some testing, go into normal mode. TVHM mostly just has these as a intro for the various geared completion categories, or if you want to do a DLC. Aside from that, these saves also, if you go up to Galaxy Completion, they have 1 out of 95 missions complete, 0 den writing, 0 raid chests, 0 crew challenges, and 0 echo logs discovered. And the reason for this is kind of twofold. Firstly, it just makes... this just makes the completion categories easier to tell. So if you're doing all quests, you can just look at the mission counter to see if you got them all. For what it's worth, the one we skip is the very first quest, the one which you skip at the start of TVHM, so that's why that's already filled in. And yeah, the rest of these, they're just nice for the completionist categories. Technically locations we could set down to 0 too, but I'd have to edit 200 plus entries, and it doesn't seem like all locations would be a particularly fun run, not like all chests or all crew challenges, so we'll get to that when it's needed. Fast travel save, it is important that we're maxed. So these saves also all have every single fast travel visited, both in normal mode and TVHM. Now, in case you don't know, this is important because in TVHM, if you've already visited a fast travel, and then you reset playthrough, you only need to get to the mission to the objective in a mission which says unlock this fast travel to be able to travel there. So let's go for this grand opening one, for example. This one just isn't locked to an objective. So because I've already visited this, I can just travel there straight away. In other cases, it can be like... In other cases, it's just like you talk to someone or whatever to finish a mission objective and it unlocks the next travel, and you can just instantly travel there instead of having to run over to actually unlock the travel. And it's pretty useful throughout the entire run, just having these travels unlocked. You can go to places earlier. So you make pretty decent use of that. And that's why, unfortunately, geared all fast travel is unlikely to ever be a thing. I guess I never mentioned the other reason. The other reason to have nothing here is because technically you might be able to use like a crew challenge or an Iridian writing to skip dialogue. In practice, that's not used anywhere, but it's there in case anyone wants to experiment with it or whatever. It's the only other notable thing about these saves before we get into the builds, they also have Guardian rank turned off by default. So you don't need to worry about doing that yourself. You should still show that it's off when you start your run. But yeah, let's move more towards the build now. So every single character in every geared run, you want to be running Mayhem 1 with Speed Demon. Mayhem is just bad, there's no reason to go into it, but Speed Demon gives a ridiculous amount of move speed, it's really good. And it's well worth this tiny health increase for going to Mayhem 1. There's never a reason you should have to change Mayhem level or go down Mayhem levels. Just only ever use Mayhem 1 with Speed Demon, basically. Do note, if you reset TVHM, it will turn Mayhem off and it will randomise your seed heal. So when you reset TVHM playthrough, you do need to go re-roll back to Speed Demon to actually do your run. You wouldn't want to accidentally do the run in Mayhem 0 and then invalidate it because of all this Mayhem 1 gear you're using. Let's quickly go over skills first. So for Zane, we're using Cannon with Brain Drain and Proliferation. Brain Drain is really pretty useless, honestly, but it's just there just in case. Sometimes it might get you extra charges. Proliferation, we want to get extra charges. For Cannon, we just want to have as many cannon shots up as possible. Then the other action skill we use is Clone with Schadenfreude to keep your shield up, which we'll talk about later, and Doppelbanger just so that you can cancel Clone whenever. Clone is just a very useful tool for movement to begin with, so teleport around, leave him somewhere useful and whatnot. It's not so necessary for fights, but he can help in them too. We'll get to that a bit more later too. And we are skipping out on some skills, so we skip Trick of the Light, because Zane counts as an enemy that's not targeting himself. So when you deal self-damage, Trick of the Light can cryo you, and we don't want that. And we skip out Fractal Frags, Duct Tape Mod, and Drone Delivery, because they all throw grenades. It's really just kind of a minor thing, but we're getting rid of the stuff that uses up grenades so that we can get the most out of Boom Enhance. It's weird, you wouldn't think it has that much of an effect, having these versus not, but if you stick into these skills, fights do take longer if you actually go practice. We skip out this Serve Cold because it creates Cryo Novas, which they can destroy barrels for one, and I think they can also sometimes cryo yourself, especially if you're standing in water. And that's it for the skills we skip. Get everything else because you can skill point dupe, of course. Now for our gear, let's start with the class mod. We use an antifreeze with +5 in violent speed. So +56% per stat, you can go really fast. This move speed's all we care about. An Infiltrator is technically better in terms of move speed, but we're using the Super Soldier, which wants to be full, and an Infiltrator does not work with that. With Infiltrators, you need it to be empty, so Antifreeze is the next best bet. The sliding while airborne stuff, that helps out too sometimes, because generally on Zane you want to be moving when you shoot stuff, so you'll just be running around the arena, jumping and whatnot to shoot things, and gets you a little extra damage. And while slow, it's really while cryo, Zane gains 100% movement speed. Let's talk about it now. This is not something you can do super consistently. We have a Frozen Devil here. Because if you switch to Ice Spike mode, the Frozen Devil is really consistent at cryoing yourself. And you might think cryoing yourself is bad because you can't slide, but it turns out if you're already sliding when you get cryoed, you can just keep cancelling the slide and re-sliding while you get the extra move speed buff from being cryoed. So cryoing yourself does actually make yourself faster. The issue is, it is a ton of micromanagement to get this working properly. It is faster if you can constantly keep yourself cryoed. It's even faster than using an Infiltrator with Triple Fleet. But you need to constantly be cryoing yourself, switching to the EMP5 for move speed. Actually, I haven't mentioned that yet, but you need to be constantly cryoing yourself, switching weapons, getting your kill skills up, getting Speed Demon. It's a ton of micromanagement, and there's nowhere you really run for. It's not something you typically use, but it's there in case you need it. Now, since I already mentioned it, we have an EMP5 for general move speed, This is just the gun you should be holding pretty much all the time, as long as you're not actively shooting someone. It's level 1 kind of for historical reasons, it doesn't really need to be. You could make this level 65 easy. It's also Mayhem 0 because you could get this before Mayhem 2.0 came out. It is a Mayhem 4 only drop, but before then there weren't Mayhem parts, so it's Mayhem 0, if you assume you picked it up then. Again, you could easily enough just make it a 65, well, it would have to be a 62 Mayhem 4 to not break the Mayhem rules. So our other movement weapon is the plumage here. This is just your rocket jumper, it's pretty easy. Level 1, so it doesn't deal much self-damage because we don't have duct tape mod. Yeah, not much else to say on that. I guess the last move speed weapon is your pestilence, or pestilence jumping. Again, it's level 1 so that you don't kill yourself. Well, you do kill yourself if you... sometimes. It's so that the dot doesn't kill yourself when it's on you. Yeah, let's go on to relics and stuff. So our relic is a Snowdrift Victory Rush with double move speed and area of effect damage. We just want move speed, that's it basically. The Victory Rush doesn't trigger much and it's broken, so you get the effect even less of the time, but all of the other relics are pretty useless, so... Snowdrift is the main thing, and Victory Rush might occasionally give you a tiny bit of extra move speed. And for our grenade, this is more relevant on other characters, and I'll talk about it more then, but we have a level 1 piss. And for Zane specifically, it's important that we have actions to start regenerate grenade anoint. And this just means you basically never run out of grenades for boom enhance. And then I already talked about our antifreeze, but I didn't mention these passives. We have splash damage radius, splash damage and sniper damage. This is all specifically to buff the root. Let's talk about that now, I guess. So, the root, like you've seen, it has a massive AoE. Specifically, we believe the secondary projectiles double dip in splash damage radius buffs. There are actually a bunch of weapons this applies to, but the root is the most broken one, so you can shoot this like once or twice and you can just see how massive that is. Now the one critical thing with the root, however, is that normally if you just shoot it, it kills you. That's also actually part of the reason why we initially avoid a trick of a light, because... never mind that, that's actually not relevant in this build anymore, I've realised. But anyway, so the way we're getting around at killing ourselves is with the Super Soldier. I guess before we move on to that, this has 300% 90 anoint because we just expect to one-shot everything pretty much. Oh, and its main element is Rad, secondary is Shock. Rad and Shock are both very neutral elements, they're just good against everything, but I believe Shock is weak against fire and Rad is weak against armor. But because we see less armored enemies during a run, we go with Rad by default. You can easily enough if you find, say, a Puke Skag. Okay, I guess I shot him directly so he didn't die, but you can easily enough just switch to Shock to deal with enemies that are immune to one element type. But now moving on, so the way we're preventing it from killing ourselves is with the Super Soldier. And we're obviously using cannon with... also went the wrong way, seeing red, death follows close. Oh, that's not relevant for this. We're still using cannon though. We have this actions can start, activate effects that trigger on shield break or film. So when we shoot cannon, it just triggers that 5-second invulnerability that the Super Soldier has naturally. So you use that to stop the root from killing yourself. And specifically sometimes you can get 3 root shots off, on Zane at least, before you need to cannon. And then it's every 6 shots you need to cannon again. And that will keep you invulnerable for just long enough. Oops, I lost count. It's like as far apart as you can space them. if you're constantly spamming, you will run out of cannon shots like you see, but that's why we have the augments to give us extra cannons as much as we can, and we try lower cooldown and whatnot. The other thing about this Super Soldier, we gave it double absorb so that it absorbs your own root shots. So you never run out of ammo because you don't have that much sniper ammo. But the other good thing about Super Soldier is just, it's kind of ridiculously OP. It's, what is it, 50% fire? No, it's 100% fire rate. Is it? I can't remember the number, but it's a ton of fire rate. It's plus 25% move speed, which is quicker than a triple Vagabond or a triple Fleet, which are 24. And it gives ammo regen while full, and we're abusing it to stay invulnerable, so it never gets damaged, so it's always full. You can just see how it fits into this build perfectly, and it is really overpowered for what we want it for. But yeah, the basics are just you shoot your cannon to make yourself invulnerable while you're shooting the root, and that also prevents you from losing this crazy fire rate. I mean, look at them going through 40 bullets in like 2 seconds. I guess let's move on to our actual weapons now. So we've already went over the complex root. The other main weapon we have is the kick charger, which is 65, mayhem 1, just like this. These were all the movement guns at level 1, so they don't kill yourself. And these both use 390 anoint because they one-shot. The kick charger, let's go visit Gravewood real quick. Kick charger is your single target weapon, basically. You're not going to expect to use it anywhere near as much as the root. But basically the root has some charge up time. It, not only just because it's mellow arm, but it takes a bit for those secondary projectiles to hit. And it deals a lot of damage, but it's not that much damage, so mostly just against single target bosses, what you do is you get your kick charger and just do that. Yeah, it can one-shot pretty much every boss you need it to. It can one-shot Psycho Reaver, so you shouldn't have any problem. A lot of bosses you don't even need to charge it up, you can just shoot it like that and it will one-shot them. But you don't use it against everything. The Aurelia is the one thing where it's important to, you need to use this against Aurelia. Everything else you could use the root, and let's compare the root against Gravewood here. But for some reason the root breaks Aurelia's fight so that you can't break her out of her regen pod things. So you need to use the kick charger against her. Here you can see the issue with the root. It takes a bit to trigger, and even then it's not as much damage. So kick charge is mostly just bossing, but when you use it, it's pretty good. You won't. It is launcher, so you won't recharge ammo from the Super Soldier. You will occasionally need to buy ammo to top it up, but you shouldn't be using it that much so that it becomes a problem. Neat. Then other gear, we have a mechanic. This is purely for when you are doing the biofuel quest, when you're running over skags. You just equip it before getting in the car, and then you can actually run over the skags, because on Mayhem 1 you can only run over pup skags without it. It gives you the damage to let you run over everything. And, oh, I never mentioned this, we have a cut purse launch pad with the same passives as the Victory Rush. That's just there in case you completely run out of ammo somewhere and you can't get to a vendor for some reason. You just equip that, do one slam, you get your ammo back. And the last weapon to talk about is the grease trap. There. The grease trap you use specifically against Troy, Tyrene, and Rampage, and only those 3 bosses. Because the hot grease alternate fire mode on it is just kind of broken. on those 3 bosses specifically, it ignores their invulnerability phase. And I should also mention this is 57 but Mayhem 9, which adds up to the same as 65 Mayhem 1, because you could only get this at 57 if... I guess technically you could have left it in your lost loot for like a year, and then done the glitch to bring it up to 65, but it doesn't matter, it's the same power as the 65 Mayhem 1 gun. But you see we gave it this dangerous green skin, so you remember don't shoot yourself with it. It's important on Amara. You see, if I switch to hot grease, yeah, we just kind of ignore the immune phase. This is only Troy, Tyrene, and Rampage, and no one else, for some reason. And we give it consecutive hits because it's obviously not one-shotting anything, but it gets a ton of shots out there real quick, especially with the Super Soldier. It's actually very important to make sure you're good at your swap reloads when using this, which I am not demonstrating very well. God damn it. Because otherwise you run out so fast. But yeah, you only use this for those 3 bosses, keep to your kick charger, then combo for the rest. And I think that's everything we need to go over on the Zane. Now, the other builds, they keep most of the same ideas. Like, we obviously swap out the comm. I mentioned we get rid of the Frozen Devil, and sometimes we need to be a little different with how we ignore the root, but most of the stuff stays similar. So let's go move on to Flak and show off his few differences. Okay, so Flak plays quite similarly to Zane actually. So let's go for our skill. We're using Rack Attack, which is just in place of Cannon. So we're obviously going for the extra charges augment, and then we don't need extra rack because we're not actually hitting anything, we don't need them to be cryo, so a little bit of lifesteal is remotely useful. It never really happens, but it helps sometimes. Well, it might help sometimes. Aside from that, it's this way. For our pit, we're using Gunslinger Jabber because it gives the same movement speed as just your base Jabber, but also a little bit of crit damage, and we don't need max health. We really just want it for the move speed basically, and it might sometimes help with crit. Aside from that, we get all the other skills except for Summon Purple. Success Imminent, your Flak or their pet creates... When their shield breaks, it creates a Radiation Nova. That Nova can destroy a barrel, which, because your shield's just broken, can down you. So we ignore that. And Monkey Dude, it's kind of ridiculous how broken this is. The bonus damage is just another damage source you deal. It's non-elemental, but it doesn't count as coming from yourself, so it can... If you self-damage in this proc, you kill yourself, basically. And it's not worth the tiny extra bit of bonus damage that you very rarely get, because you usually kill stuff before your Jabber actually kills it for you. So we skip out on those, but otherwise we get everything else. So, gear-wise, we obviously remove the Frozen Devil. We go for Rat Commander, this has the exact same passives as the other one. And it's just for extra rack attack charges. On our EMP5, Plumage, and I believe the Pestilence 2, we all add extra rack attack charge. So you can get a few stacks. Rack attack doesn't charge up as quickly as Cannon, so it's a little more awkward running Flak than Zane, but you can still make decent enough use of it. Using the exact same Super Soldier. The rest of this is the exact same anoints and whatnot. The one thing that's different is the Piss. Actually thinking about it, you might want next 2 mags now as the anoint, but... So on non-Zane characters you can actually use the Piss, so what it's for... We make ourselves invulnerable. You see, I've I've now got the rad dot, which deals quite a bit of damage, so that's what your pistol's for. You can shoot yourself to get rid of all dots. And that's basically all you use it for. Wow, where'd I get that much speed that I can't slide? Aside from that, Flak is pretty much just a worse Zane with a little less move speed and a little more awkwardness, staying invulnerable with Rack Attack. I do not actually have timings for when you need to shoot Rack Attack to stay invulnerable or anything like that, but just make sure to do it roughly every 5 seconds. And it's not the worst if you temporarily down yourself as it's killing stuff either. So next let's quickly look at what Mo's does different. Okay, so on Mo's, you have to do a few things different. First of all, we're not using Space Cat skin. If you're on Mo's, it's the law, you have to use the Accent skin. But, really, so we obviously can't do any action skill spam on Mo's. So instead we're using a level 1 Super Soldier with Absorb and Amp. And no annoying because you can't really get that at level 1. And we're using a Bloodletter with Health Regen, which it then turns into Shield Regen. So whenever you shoot, it takes away a bunch of your shield, and then you instantly regen it back. So in Mo's, you get your invulnerability just by shooting. It can be any weapon, so if you go head over here, kill these, you basically don't need to worry. It is, however, important to remember either use your piss or remember to keep shooting to keep yourself invulnerable. Because if we go over to skills, I believe it's Torque Cross Promotion. No, it's one of these. Oh, Fire in the Skagden, right. That sets yourself on fire too as you're shooting, and that deals a lot of damage. So skill-wise, this is mostly Cub focused. You get Cub with Efficiency Engine just so we get a little bit of extra damage when he's up. The rest of these don't really matter. We don't want him to do a nuke. We don't care about his armor. And we don't care about him doing incendiary damage. The other gun we give him is Capacitive Armature Railgun, because Capacitive Armature is just OP, and Cub can occasionally go clear some areas for you. It does really good AoE too. Now Bloodletter goes max into Phalanx Doctrine for a bunch of gun damage if you need it. Like, buffing max shields, yeah, it's a little annoying, but you saw I'm only at 800 right now with 14 stacks. And even that, it's still regening in reasonable enough time to stay invulnerable. You'd need hundreds of stacks for it to really become a problem. And notably here, we're skipping out on Thin Red Line, because Max Health Reserved added to Max Shields, that would add to our Max Shield team, would have like 10k Max Shield or something, which is not good. We want it to be very empty, so you have to skip out Thin Red Line. The other skill we skip is Ducker Bear, which is... technically this increases Iron Bear's hitbox size. Now you use Cub, so you'd have to switch into Iron Bear, and you'd have to be in Iron Bear, going through down a hallway that's close to the size limit for it to really matter, but it also doesn't really give us anything, because there needs to be a rider in there to get damage, so... Oh, I guess Cub does get a little bit of extra damage anyway, but it doesn't really give us anything, so we just skip it out anyway, just for that niche case. Aside from that, here we're still using this annoying, which could probably be switched to an X2 mags as well. But this is pretty much the same as it was on Zane. It's in all the same places and whatnot. On the Bloodletter we got rid of the splash damage buff, which is only a plus 36 to plus 40 sniper rifle damage, just to make space for the health regen, and also just cause Mo's has a lot of splash buffs, it's probably better to buff something else which will multiply it. But aside from that, this is all the same. The one extra thing to note on Mo's is that phalanx stacking is still a thing. So you can go kinda fast, but as soon as you take any damage, including by just shooting your shield, this goes away. We don't actually have a different shield, and yeah, unequipping that breaks it, so not much you can really do. But occasionally if you're running long distances, you might be able to do a bit of phalanx stacking. Okay, so Amara kind of got left behind when they introduced the Super Soldier. Amara just does not have a way to keep proccing its invulnerability. So the way Amara resists the root is just to use Shock and a Transformer. And you can see that's fine. So this more closely resembles the old build before Director's Cut patch, and you could actually use this before then relatively easily. You just lose these 3 items, but keep the rest. But Amara's also kind of different because of all this, so... And to start off, first you'll notice we have a sellout equipped instead of our kick charger. And this is because I kind of shouldn't shoot that. Just because you use the sellout to get mindfulness. Just waiting for it to wear off. There you go, you can see if you shoot yourself once with the sellout, you easily get up to 25 stacks. Oh, just ran out in time. If you shoot yourself twice, you instantly get up there. Tons of move speed, you can run relatively fast without really needing anything special. We also have a spiritual driver with +3 in mindfulness. Let's go over our skills real quick, because actually we can just get everything. Go +3 in mindfulness, and then out of the remaining skills, a little bit of damage reduction is the most useful. For our action skill, we're using Fracture because it's a slam, and it's the slam with the lowest cooldown. We'll get onto that a bit more later. We're grabbing Expedite as an augment, just for the slight chance that you kill something with the slam. It doesn't really happen. Which I'll go over in a second. And for our element, we're just using Shock, the base element, with nothing equipped. If you, because of various skills in this tree, which probably that one, any of these which say action skill element, if you're not using Shock, it converts some of your root stuff here into that other element, which bypasses your transformer, so it kills you. So you have to use Shock element. So now, why are we using Slam? Because of this annoying, after using Phase Slam, weapon damage is increased to 300%. And on shields, we have after using Phase Slam, damage is reduced, don't care about that, movement speed is increased by 12%. So you'll see, well, our Super Soldier has this action skill start annoying in case you want to try it, but on the red suit, which we use to resist rad if you need to switch to alt fire or pestilence jump, this has the same anoint. And on our grease trap, we're also using Phase Slam, and we could probably use it on the kick charger too, but the kick charger really is a one-shot weapon, so 390 is fine there. It's still 300%. The thing is just, the Phase Slam anoint applies for longer than the 390 anoint. But the really good thing about Phase Slam is you can emote cancel it, so rather than needing to go for all that, you can just do that. And it instantly goes and you get the move speed and the extra damage, which is very helpful. And we of course have, I forget its name, Avatar, to be able to use your slam twice while it's cooling down. Apart from that, the basics are still the same. You still have your pestilence and your mechanic and whatnot. Because you need to keep the sellout equipped more of the time for your move speed. Because of that, you don't have a kick charge equipped all the time, and there are a few bosses which you might just decide to do using root instead. But you do still need to occasionally equip it, like, you might as well equip it when you're doing Aurelia into Gravewood, because you need to equip something else for Aurelia anyway. But yeah, Amara unfortunately can't really make use of the Super Soldier as well as the others can.